Persistence. Look at my tongue.
A major aim of the BDA DHSS Communication Skills Project is to encourage the training of interpreters.
Because this is a criminal offence, we would like to take your fingerprints. But I must caution you that you are not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so, but what you say may be put into writing and given in evidence.
So BSL, if it's used as a first language for the children, they're going to have access to the full curriculum, geography, science, maths, I mean, English is an important second language, but you need to start with BSL. And then they'll be able to take on other things like English. So when they grow up, they're going to have full use of BSL and also full use of English.